connecting the world with pervasive money. He opened our minds, made the banks look funny, but he kept his head down and stayed in the dark. We'll never know if it was planned or a lark, but the world post-Satoshi is forever changed. Whether his origin block is lost or unclaimed, the world is rocked, bankers shocked, bureaucrats too. Governments don't know what to do. We want a new world order.
Yes,
we
sir.
want to play across the border. I just want to be a hodler on my Bitcoin hustle.
Yes, sir.
Bitcoin hustle.
Yes, sir.
Bitcoin hustle. Go get your hustle. Go and flex your Bitcoin muscle.
Yes, sir. Right.
I mean, how amazing is that? Welcome back. I'm Crypto Man Run, and I come to you every single day at 10 a.m. EST to bring you crypto love and crypto wisdom to make sure that the whole world gets us in this amazing bull market. But today is a special day, and so I'm coming to you at a special time because I've got a special guest joining us on the show, and that guest is none other than Tim Draper. Yeah, I've got Tim Draper live for us here, all the way from California, and we've got so much to talk to him about, so much to talk to him about, and I know he's been excited for this interview. So without any further delay, you guys need to smash the like button and smash the subscribe button, because if you don't like and if you don't hit that bell, you don't know when we're coming to you. And when we come to you with these surprise broadcasts like the one we're doing now, which was completely unplanned, then if you haven't hit the bell, you're not going to know about it. And why should you hit the like button? Because we work hard, and all you need to do to grow your crypto bags is just hit the like button. And when you do that, this crypto wisdom goes all around the world. And make sure that YouTube doesn't block us. And last week, like I said to you, 3 of my videos, 3 out of 5 videos last week got blocked because YouTube doesn't like it when I say the words money. And that's what we do on this channel. We teach you how to make money on this channel. And every time I say the word, the YouTube algorithm just completely blocks it out. So what do you need to do? Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to bring in Tim Draper, because that's why wait? Tim, welcome to Crypto Banter. How are you, my friend?
Terrific. I'm dying to know what that word is that they're trying to censor from you.
You're not allowed to say the words make money. Every time I say my community
makes money. Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to make money. They've been making money. Why do they have a problem with other people making money?
Exactly. We got to talk about that, because that's the whole thing around decentralization. But before that, Tim, I'm expecting a rap or a poem or a song. I mean, I'm not going to let you
heard the rap. You just heard the rap. It was it's the Bitcoin hustle.
Yeah,
forever. World past Satoshi is forever changed.
Yes.
Whether it was a lark or planned or whatever, I forget exactly the rhyme, but I wrote it.
Listen, the world past Satoshi has really changed, and I know that you've been one of the drivers of this change. I mean, I've seen you at conferences all along. I think the last time I actually interviewed you was 2017 or 2018 in Los Angeles at the conference, and you've been pushing Bitcoin ever since. But it's never been as exciting of a time to be seeing the rewards of all the hard work that you've done in pushing Bitcoin. Take me back on your journey to the beginning when no one was interested in Bitcoin, and talk to me about how that's changed now.
Oh, well, I'll take you way back, because in 2004, I talked to this guy from Korea, and he said that half the Korean population is playing this game called Legend, I think, something like that. And I said, well, really, how's it work? And he tells me, and then he said, yeah, and it's so important that I have to, when I go to work, I have to pay a guy to be my avatar and keep this thing going. And I looked at him and I said, really? And he said, yeah, because you earn this, funny money in there, and you do this. And he wants to build up his inventory and his money. And I thought, oh my gosh, there is going to be a virtual world. People are going to live both in the real world and in this virtual world. And so I started looking for virtual money opportunities. And when I saw Bitcoin, I didn't think it was going to happen that way to start with. I thought it was going to be game to game, where they'd have an exchange where, the gold you get on one game was equal to the credit you got in another game and some transfer of value. But Bitcoin came along and it changed all that. And I looked and I said, oh my God, this is going to be really extraordinary. And I was all excited. And then I bought some Bitcoin. I bought into something called CoinLab. And I also bought some Bitcoin. And the CoinLab guy said, you know, the Bitcoin, we lost it all to Mt. Gox. They in effect stole the money or whatever. And I said, well, you know, oh, too bad. But at that point, I just thought, well, you know, too bad. This was a good experiment. It was going to be interesting. But Bitcoin price, I thought Bitcoin price was going to go to zero after that. Mt. Gox was the biggest exchange on Bitcoin at the time. But it dropped only about 10% on that news. And I thought, whoa, what's everybody using this for? And I dug in, and they were doing it for remittance, and they were doing it for paying people cross-border, and they were doing all sorts of interesting things with this Bitcoin. And I started to think, wow, this is really important. And then when the Silk Road money came up, this Silk Road auction for Bitcoin came up, I looked at it and I said, I talked to all my friends and they were all saying, well, what kind of a discount are you going to get on this Bitcoin? And they were all thinking about a discount to market. Market was about 618 at the time. And I thought, you know, this is a big clump of Bitcoin. And if it's either going to go one way or another. Either it's the future currency of the world, where it's decentralized, open, transparent, global. It's this beautiful thing, or it just goes away. And I thought, you know, it doesn't matter if I pay a little 10% higher if I get this. And so I did. And I bought it at 632, and I bought a big clump at 632, and it immediately dropped down to about 180. And I was the stupidest man on the planet at that point. But I just hung on. In fact, I bought more, and I invested some of that into some startups, and then just slowly but surely, I noticed the startup. My son at Boost VC created an ecosystem around Bitcoin hodlers and engineers. And they were a very active group and very bright group. And I thought, wow, this is happening all over the world. And then I started to see, you know, people frustrated with their governments, people frustrated with their national currencies, their fiat currencies. And I realized that this had real value outside the U.S. Because, you know, if your currency, like, let's say you're in Argentina, your currency drops 75% a year in value, you have no incentive to create something of great value. Because if it comes in Argentinian pesos, you know, those are like, you know,
like paper. I mean, that's
paper or whatever. It's nothing. It's like, you know, swampland or whatever. It's and it gets worth less and less and less over time. So I thought, wow, you know, the Argentinians are really going to benefit from this, and so are the Nigerians with their horrible naira, and the Venezuelans with their horrible bolivar. You know, all those currencies are, you know, horrible. And many of the African countries, you know, if you build something of value, those governments just come in and take it from you. And so this was an opportunity for all the rest of the world to open up and be a part of the world economy, even if they come from a country with a bad government. And then the U.S. started printing money sort of willy-nilly. And all of a sudden, people realized in the U.S., that, hey, oh, wait, maybe we need to hedge against this coming inflation or whatever. And so Bitcoin got more serious in the U.S. it had been serious in many other countries, but it got more serious in the US. And it made it so that these financial institutions went from, saying, oh, I'd kind of like to participate, but I feel like it's anti-establishment and I am establishment. But now people are looking at it and saying, I have to own it because as a fiduciary, I need that as a hedge against inflation or against bad governments or against, it's more, they're saying a hedge, but it could also be like as an investment in the future of the world. People have asked me, well, so when are you going to sell? When are you going to sell your Bitcoin? And I said, into what? Because
that's my next.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, in terms of your particular balance sheet, you're a big Bitcoin fan and a big Bitcoin bull. Question is, how much of your balance sheet sits in Bitcoin versus the US dollar? Because I have a certain allocation between Bitcoin and US dollars in my portfolio, and every day when I look at what the US government is doing, I'm petrified about the money that sits in my US dollar account. On the other hand, I don't want to do a Michael Saylor and be all in on Bitcoin because just in case something goes wrong, I don't want to be the guy who drank his own Kool-Aid. So wondering how you view that.
Well, I say, why would I take, I have a lot of Bitcoin, and I say, why would I take the currency of the future and sell it into the currency of the past? So why do I want to look at, I mean, dollars and drachma and whatever, they're all currencies of the past. And this is the currency of the future. It's global, it's open, it's decentralized, it's transparent, it keeps perfect records. It's so much better than the dollar. People say, well, oh, yeah, criminals probably use Bitcoin. They don't, because they all get caught because the records are perfect on Bitcoin. If you're a criminal, use dollars. But
cash.
Yeah, use cash because it's like untraceable. But you can trace all the Bitcoin. You can keep perfect records. It does it by itself. You don't have to pay the accountant. Eventually, we're going to have smart contracts. You're going to not going to have to pay the lawyer as much. There are some really interesting things that are potentially happening with this future currency that we could get into later. But why would I? So the answer is, I have just enough fiat cash to make my capital calls for my venture funds. And beyond that, it's all Bitcoin and startups.
Tim,
so that's kind of where I like, and you bet on where you want the world to go. I want an open, transparent, global world. I think the tribal world is over. I think the world where I say, hey, here's a line and you don't cross over and I don't cross over and then we can build our economies together. I think that's done because we're both better off trading with each other. If we drew that line and I had a house and you had a farm and we were stuck, I would die of starvation and you'd die of exposure. But the world has to, and multiply that by the 8 billion people around the world and all of the connections they make, every single one of them is helping each other have a better life. So why would we limit that by putting up all of these national borders? So long term, 20, 40 years from now, I think those borders are gone. I think Bitcoin is going to drive us there because if I pay someone in Bitcoin, it doesn't matter where they are. And let's say they're worth, I don't know how many Bitcoin a year, 2 Bitcoin a year, something like that. That would pay a lot more in Argentina than it would in the US. And they would, but they perform the same job. I mean, if we're on a Zoom call or something, and I don't have any of my team in my vicinity, then it doesn't matter where they are. They could be anywhere. And so that flattens the world for economics, for employment, for all of those things. And so this is the beginning of the flattening of that world. And so all these regulations people are putting on California employers are pushing people away. They're sort of saying, well, why would I hire somebody? Oh, I see, we got a bunch of hair over there. Why would I hire somebody to do to live in California when I can hire somebody without all those regulations from Texas or Pakistan or wherever? So this is the beginning of the opening of the world, and you can see politicians getting paranoid and panicked about it and becoming more nationalistic. Fortunately, some of the politicians are seeing it more clearly and saying, we want to do business with people around the world. We want to open up, and it will be the more open politicians that create the great value for their countries and their people. Freedom makes all the difference. The South Koreans have way outperformed the North Koreans over the last 70 years. The North Koreans are, of course, socialist, dictatorship, government control, government rules, live by government rules. And South Korea has been the free market, capitalist, democracy, dynamic, great system. And that has made it so the average South Korean makes 400 times, even with purchasing power, 400 times what the average North Korean makes. And they are now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. So freedom works. That's all there is to it. And the countries that recognize that and create free markets for their people, like Texas, will benefit big time over the next 40 years. And the ones that limit their people and try to have government controls and rules and regulations, they will stifle their people.
Where do you see the US on the spectrum? And I ask this because just before the Trump administration checked out, we had Steve Mnuchin try and pass that law, which would make us all have to disclose our non-custodial wallets, or KYC our non-custodial wallets. You see that potentially Gary Gensler is going to be the head of the SEC, and he's going to be in charge of regulating a potential ETF. Where is the US when it comes to this freedom?
It's interesting. I've two paths come to me here. First, Gary Gensler is an incredibly bright guy. I had a wonderful discussion with him about 2 years ago, all about Bitcoin, and he taught the blockchain at MIT. The guy is really well qualified, so I hope he does end up being the head of the SEC, and I think he'd be a very good candidate.
If he's the head of the SEC, surely we're getting a Bitcoin ETF this year. I mean, someone who understands Bitcoin as well.
I don't know. See, it's crazy. This is the second part of that, is that the U.S. is tripping over all their regulations and kind of making it so that the world economy goes somewhere else. Canada is the first ETFs in North America. Why is that? And all of a sudden, there are two great ETFs buying Bitcoin for people. They're traded. They're very popular. And the U.S., the Winklevoss twins have been working on this with the U.S. for years now. And the U.S. has so many rules and so many regulations that they just trip over before getting anything done. That is a problem. That is too much government control. That is too much regulation. On the other hand, I think the U.S. did it brilliantly with the internet. They had light touch. They had hands off on the internet, and as a result, they built this incredible economic system around the internet in the U.S. All these huge successful tech companies came because they didn't have a whole bunch of regulations on people. And the SEC has this quandary. They have to, their mission is to protect people from themselves, which I'm not sure is a good mission generally, but protect people from themselves. And but at the same time, they realize that we want to be the leaders in innovation, technology, and we want to be the ones who lead the world in moving toward freedom and novelties and new ways of thinking. And that may be stifled because we're sort of tripping over too many regulations.
I must say, I agree with you. I live in the US. I moved to the US 2 years ago. I'm currently not in the US, but I do live in the US. And having experienced being an outsider and coming to live in the US, I realized that the level of regulation actually made it really unworkable, and specifically in a gray area like the blockchain. People are very scared to operate, and you're seeing a lot of the talent actually leave the US and go to places outside the US. And even if they don't actually leave physically, companies are domiciling themselves outside the US. So I agree with you that the US did a great job in the internet, but I think that in this case, the US may be taking a little bit too long to come to the party. Maybe that's just a feeling, my feeling, but I'm getting the feeling that the US may lose a lot of blockchain talent to or a lot of the blockchain advantage to places like Korea.
Yeah, I think they're losing it to Japan, for instance, and to Malta and to Switzerland, certainly to Canada now.
Canada.
Well, because Canada did the first ETFs, so we missed the boat there. But I think the U.S. can still claim leadership if they do the following: if they allow us to operate a business completely in Bitcoin and tax it in Bitcoin, so that you, let's say my business, I raise money in Bitcoin, I invest it all in Bitcoin into all these startups. The startups pay their employees and suppliers in Bitcoin, and then pay taxes in Bitcoin. If they can allow that, as long as it's a controlled bubble that doesn't go from Bitcoin to Bitcoin to dollar, there's no reason that the government can't tax it that way. Make it exactly the same as though it were a dollar. Right now, they're tripling the accounting costs of anybody who wants to operate their business in Bitcoin, because they translate it to dollars and then back, and then they have to look at the difference in the price between when it was a dollar and when it was a Bitcoin, and then they tax on that little difference. I mean, the U.S. could be very innovative and say, we're only going to tax on transactions. We'll tax 0.025% of every transaction that goes through in Bitcoin, and they end up making a ton more money than they do. The nightmare of taxes that we go through today. There is a way for the U.S. to reclaim leadership in this clearly growing enormous industry that looks like it's going to be the future of money.
Now, Tim, do you think in Bitcoin? Because I've found myself of late actually thinking in Bitcoin. So, I was supposed to buy a new laptop for one of my employees, and I found that automatically in my head, I priced that laptop in Bitcoin. And I think that I've slowly started to think in Bitcoin as opposed to US dollars. That may be because a lot more of my wealth is in Bitcoin. So naturally, I'm trying to protect wealth or create wealth. And because I've started to protect wealth or create wealth in Bitcoin, I've started to cost things or to price things in Bitcoin. So a house is X Bitcoin. A car is 1 Bitcoin. A Tesla is 2 Bitcoin. If you want to buy a Tesla now, it's 2 Bitcoin. Have you started to think like that? Do you find that in your day, that's how you think?
Yeah, it was interesting. I paid the first time I set up Draper University, I brought in a whole bunch of people, and I didn't really want to pay them a fee for speaking. So I gave each of them one of these Bitcoin, the actually physical, what's it called, Caucasus coins. And I've had stories where some people ripped their house apart to find that Bitcoin that I handed to them that day. But yes, it is. I mean, I do the calculation pretty quickly back and forth, but I tend, like I tweeted it before Elon got all going on this Bitcoin. I tweeted at him and I said, look, I want to buy one of your cars, and I think you should accept Bitcoin, one of the trucks. And I think you should accept Bitcoin, but I don't want to pay in Bitcoin.
Yeah, because
2 weeks later, he's accepting Bitcoin for his cars, and he buys $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Were you surprised at the speed at which he moved? Because
he moved incredibly quickly. He must have been thinking about it for a long time before I tweeted, and maybe that was the thing that kind of catalyzed it. But he, clearly he's a visionary. He thinks about the future. He's thinking, we're gonna colonize other planets. It looks like Bitcoin would be a much better currency to use than any of these that are tied to government, the whims of government or the winds of change. And better to know what something is actually worth. Somebody just said, actually, this great guy, Scott Edwards, just told me that he sees a future where there are 1 trillion people on a billion planet, I don't know, 100 million planets, and he said to colonize a planet will cost 1 Bitcoin. Totally colonize a planet.
Hopefully, that's exactly what Bitcoin is going to be worth. Tim, I know that you and your son had a little bit of a tiff at one another because he was one of the first investors into Coinbase, right? And I think
No, there was no tiff. He was just smart enough. We were in the same meeting, and he was smart enough to make the investment in Coinbase, and I wasn't. I had already had an investment in CoinLab and an investment in I bought some Bitcoin. But he was in the same meeting, and he put the money down. And he is, and then later on, when Coinbase came out for more money, I did invest. And then later on, and then we invested again for our fund. And the fund looks like it's really going to benefit. Coinbase looks like it's going to be an amazing value.
Well, they're raising the last raise was at $100 billion valuation. And if you look at that raise relative to, call it competitors, I don't know if you can call these guys competitors, but if you look at the CBOE, that market cap is only $10 billion. The CME, the whole CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, has a market cap of $70 billion. The NASDAQ has $23 billion. And ICE, which is the holding company of the NASDAQ, has $67 billion. I guess that must be a sign of how the market is viewing the crypto revolution.
Yeah, for some reason, I look at that and I say, well, that makes perfect sense. People are looking and saying, Coinbase is a nearly dominant, well, it's the dominant legitimate exchange in the world. And that could, it could be bigger than, compare it to all the banks put together. And that's where you might start running into about the same.
In that first meeting when you and Adam were sitting in the meeting and Coinbase were looking to raise money, what was the valuation in that first meeting? Had you written a check in that first meeting? What was
$12 million.
$12 million. So it's listing now at, what is it, 1,000x? Is it 100x or 1,000x? Fred, do the maths for me, man.
Well, that's 12 million to 12 billion is 1,000. So this is almost 10,000.
10,000x. Holy smokes. I thought I was lucky with
my son is clearly the best venture capitalist on the planet.
Well, if
Adam Draper with Boost VC, probably the best venture capitalist on the planet.
I think we need to get Adam on. He has been on my other show, but we definitely need to get
him back.
Although
he's got competition. My son Billy brought me into Robinhood, which has about the same kind of return. And I did do that one at an early stage. And my daughter Jessie brought me Facebook, and I got outbid for that one. So I think we've got some really good venture capitalists coming along.
That brings me to like something that I wonder very much about. You are exposed to lots of VC, so you're not only a crypto guy, you're actually exposed to probably all the best deals in the world. When you see the other deals and then you look at crypto deals, like how can you still get excited, or do you still get excited by the other deals, or are you much more like excited when a crypto deal comes along?
So it varies. There was a lot of bad crypto deals that came up right after those first two that we did. The two Tezos and Banter. When we did those two, there were a lot of Me Too followers that were not excited. But now, you're seeing all that DeFi. I think there's decentralized insurance opportunities. There's decentralized government opportunities. There are so many interesting places where this decentralization is going to be incredibly valuable. There's smart contract companies. There are, and then you take it further, and all that data and the permanence of that data is going to be valuable for healthcare and space and all these other industries. So it's hard for me to separate the Bitcoin kind of deals from from whatever the other ones are, because everything's moving into data. Healthcare diagnostics tools are all data driven. The therapeutics tools, all data driven, and the currency of the world in the future is all going to be data driven. And so, I'm excited. I tend to have my antenna up higher when somebody says, "Hey, we're gonna," like OpenNode came to us and they said, "Hey, we're gonna make it so all the retailers can easily accept Bitcoin, and we can have rails that are faster than the Visa network." That kind of thing does get me going. It's like, wow, that's going to be a big opportunity.
So, Tim, is your view, so I take it from what you're saying, that your view is much broader than a Bitcoin view, that you're actually looking at the entire crypto opportunity as opposed to just Bitcoin. When you look at the crypto opportunity today, what excites you? Like, which projects excite you? Which sectors excite you beyond Bitcoin?
I love Bitcoin, and I love all altcoins. I like the ones that have a lot of great engineers supporting it, and I think if you follow the really good engineers, that will that's a good thing to keep in mind where things are going. I also like the ones that are going to drive us toward a more open and decentralized world, and that can mean things like Aragon that are tied to kind of creating the next form of democracy, like a liquid democracy. I like for the stable coins, I think Maker has a beautiful model. It's very secure and interesting. I think Tezos is really exciting because of its ability. They're way ahead in building smart contracts and in proof of stake. Let's see who else. I'm a big fan of what everyone is doing in this crypto world, because it really is exciting, and it's where we're all headed. It's the future, and we could easily be surprised by a number of different currencies coming out that do different things that none of us ever imagined. So I'd keep my eye to the ground. So that's on the cryptocurrency side. on the industry side, I feel like, wow, you could now with Bitcoin and the blockchain and smart contracts and some surveillance and maybe a good actuary, you can create an insurance company that where, you know, right now when you do insurance, you pay your premium, and then you issue a claim. And then you fight with the insurance company, boom, 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 until they finally give you some amount of money, and it's usually less than you hope and more than they wanted to give to you. But with this new form of insurance, the satellite can spot your house, and before you even try to issue a claim, they can say, "We saw that your house burned down. Here is a check to start your new life, build your new house." And that kind of an insurance company would be a big winner. But think about what government is. It's a series of these insurance companies. It's healthcare insurance and workman's comp insurance and unemployment insurance and the welfare and Social Security. They're all insurance. Well, to me, that means that all that overhead tied to insurance, tied to government and to insurance companies can shrink down, and we can have like a government 11 miles offshore or one up in space that provides better services to all the people than the geographic government that they've been working with for all this time. And the first hope of that was when Estonia started its virtual residency program. And so you can like be a resident of Estonia without ever setting foot in Estonia. Set up a bank account, set up a business, you can do all sorts of things. But there are now more services that could be provided to people that are off, that will be off the what the grid of the nationalistic world. And that's going to be really interesting. We're going to have a really interesting time. And you're going to see the Luddites trying to keep it all back the way it was. But the genie's out of the bottle and we're all going decentralized. This is an exciting time for the world. It's going to be one world and hopefully two worlds once Elon gets us on Mars. And that's going to be a really interesting time. I think the internet got me really fired up, and I got to invest in the internet, and everything was great fun. And we were able to build communications around the world and information. But Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, and artificial intelligence and surveillance are creating an opportunity to transform the biggest industries in the world, from finance to banking to insurance to government to healthcare. They're all going to go through major changes. That is incredibly exciting. And so all of a sudden, I got a new lease on life. I've aged, but I got a good lease on life. I'm so excited about this.
Tim, do we need governments? I mean, if you think about what you said, governments are actually just a series of insurance contracts, and also they hold the treasury. I mean, if you think about it, what do governments do? They hold the treasury, they decide how to spend the treasury, and then they become this, like you say, insurer of last resort. They make sure that the country survives, and if not, they just keep printing more money. But if you take away their ability to print more money, and you decide where to allocate your taxes using smart contracts, and you effectively eliminate the need for a government, and then you land up with a blockchain like Tezos, where the entire ecosystem basically gets governed by the community on an on-chain mechanism. What is the future of government?
Yeah, I think we're going to move toward this liquid democracy. I think that's probably the direction the world goes. And I think existing governments are going to have to compete for the great minds and the capital and the entrepreneurs of the world. They're going to have to compete. They're going to have to provide services and be accountable to their people, or people will leave. or they'll go to another place. And I think governments are going to be less and less land-based and more virtual over time. That's the direction I think governments are going to go. And if they're virtual, they're going to have to compete, just like all the other virtual companies in the world. And that's going to be really interesting. But we, as citizens of the world, are going to get much better services from governments because of that. Rather than us sort of begging, the government to allow us to do this or that, they're going to be coming to us and saying, what can we do to make your life better, your business better, your education better? What can we do for you? It's the way the U.S. government used to be before maybe 30 years ago. There was a switch that was thrown about 30 years ago that somehow made it from what can we do, government saying, what can we do for you, to have you filled out form 6C, 12A, B? It's a different. Yeah, they're not providing a service. They're mostly collecting data. I think that there are going to be new forms of government, and it's going to be different. But it's going to be much better, and I think governments are going to evolve. They'll be much more efficient, hopefully more effective, or people will move to other areas. God, I asked my team, so who would move to Austin, Texas? We're in the Silicon Valley here. Who would move to Austin, Texas? Almost every hand went up, and I thought, oh my God. Well, first, we may have to move to Austin, Texas, but that is really just sort of a oppressive moving towards socialistic government in California against a very business-friendly, capitalistic, free market, freedom-fighting government in Texas. And I think California will recognize that they're losing all of their great entrepreneurs and the money and the wealth and all of that, and it's all moving, and they're going to have to change, or they're going to lose even more. And I think people say, "Oh, get rid of those billionaires." Well, you lose a billionaire, you lose about 100,000 jobs, and they go with him, whoever or her, whoever takes that money. The 100,000 jobs go that way. And you don't want to lose that. And so I think governments are going to get smart. They're going to recognize that. They're going to want to be friendly to businesses. They're going to want to encourage businesses. They're going to want to get futuristic. They're going to want to provide services to the crypto and business and Bitcoin and blockchain, smart contracts, and artificial intelligence industries. This is going to be one of those times when the governments that make the right calls now are going to be big winners for the next 40, 50 years. And the ones who make the wrong calls now are going to be huge losers. They're going to be left in the dust. It's a really interesting time. And it's a little like when, Singapore was one of the, trust is a big deal, and we got great trust in Bitcoin. The blockchain keeps perfect records, hasn't been hacked to date, which is great, knock on wood. And so these governments, Singapore, when they got started, when they were 70 years ago, they were the poorest country in the world and the least trusted. Lee Kuan Yew came in, and all he did was build trust, all the way for 70 years. Now Singapore is one of the richest countries in the world. So they went from poorest to richest, all on that trust. This is a really interesting time where we can have a trusted currency. We can have governments. Governments are going to have to be trustworthy, or we're going to leave. And we have a wide open future. And so that was 70 years back when trust became a big deal in Singapore. Well, look, if you can build trust throughout the planet in some way, it won't matter to us who we're operating with. Do I want to do a deal with somebody in China or India or wherever? I won't think twice about it because I will have trust in the system. Whether the government is trusted or not is another thing. I mean, God, there's no trust in like many of the African countries. And so nobody wants to build anything of lasting value because they think that the government will just take it away or make it their own or whatever. And so you want that trust in your system, and Bitcoin allows that trust. And all the miners, they are helping build that trust, and all the engineers working on it, they're helping build that trust, and so it can be built into the system. It's going to be so exciting. Anyway, this was fun. Sorry I did all this ranting. Do you have other questions?
This is amazing. I think we have entered a phase where we're taking away the control from governments. Governments are going to have to compete for our tax money or for our taxes. And I think we are going to use blockchain to both use money, which will be Bitcoin, and also to have governance, which will be something like a Tezos. One last question, and it's coming more from the crowd than it's coming from me, and that is, have you started to invest in the whole NFT craze? Have you started to invest in the whole non-fungible token craze? Have you noticed it? Is it something that's on your radar? Where do you see that?
We did make one investment, which was a fun game thing. It was a small investment, but it was great. I like NFTs, and I was thinking about it, playing with my granddaughter, and she was climbing a tree, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to give you the tree climbing award. And I thought, well, yeah, I could give her a badge, or I could draw her a picture or something. But instead, I could actually give her an NFT for tree climbing. And it got me thinking that, yeah, there are going to be reasons for those NFTs beyond just collectors and stuff. And I think that they're going, and the collectors are going to love them too. I mean, you get one of the 3 times, so Steph Curry sinks a basket and says hello to you or whatever. You get one of the 3 that they make. That's kind of a cool thing. So I think we're going to see some real activity in NFTs. I also think they're going to take on various forms. Some are going to be very long videos. Some are going to be short. Some are going to be photos, art, whatever. So a lot of good things can happen there.
If anybody is watching and you want to make a Tim Draper NFT, well, I'll make sure that we can send it to Tim Draper. I'll contact his team, and I'll make sure that we actually send him a limited edition Tim Draper NFT. Tim, I plan to speak to you for 20 minutes. It's been 50 minutes. I know I've taken a lot of your day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Get lost in our conversation. I look forward to speaking to you again. It's always amazing speaking to you, and I could carry on speaking to you for hours. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for coming to Crypto Banter. And guys, if you are watching this, I see there's 1,000 of you watching this, and there's 400 likes. Give Tim some love. Smash that like button. Let's show him our appreciation. This man has a lot of things to do in his day, and he's here on CryptoBanter.com bringing you crypto love. And that's what Crypto Banter is all about. Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on the show. That was fun.
Such a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. And that is all we have time for today. That's our second show of the day. And we're going to keep bringing you 2, 3, 4 shows a day, because CryptoBanter.com is where you come to get live streaming information that will make you a better crypto trader. Guys, I'll see you again tomorrow. Same time, 10 a.m. EST, every single day, bringing you crypto love. Until then, if you're out there and you're trading, be careful. Trade well, my friends.
Crypto Banter is a social podcast for entertainment purposes only. All opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers should not be construed as financial advice. Views expressed by guests and hosts do not reflect the views of the station. Listeners are encouraged to do their own research.
900,000 tokens, $1 million.